Wunderbar.
Right. Shall we do this? Let's get to the news.
It's the
Let's
fucking
jump right
news.
back into it. It's the 13th of January. Holidays are over. We're doing it. Yeah, LA fires. Pretty. Have you been watching much about it, Magenta?
Yeah, well, I haven't watched much news over the holidays, but I have been watching, obviously, Philip DeFranco. I can't not watch him. So I've been watching a bit of that coverage. I did actually watch the One News today. I thought, why not? Go
The One
crazy.
News.
The
The
One
One News.
News. I went on and I actually watched like a whole episode. It was the first time I've done that in ages. And it's pretty
Good
crazy.
on you.
Like, it's really sad to see, but.
Yeah, and I think it's getting a lot of coverage as well because I don't know if many people know this, but a lot of streamers and people in the media and entertainment industry as a whole, so not just Hollywood actors and that sort of thing, but streamers as well. Um, there is a lot in
Writers
the
as well.
LA area. And writers, like everyone in the entertainment industry, including those online and streaming, tend to live in that area because that's where all the connections are. It's where all the events are, and so it makes sense to kind of live in that area. So we've heard a lot of people online sharing their personal experiences. YouTubers as well is another one. They tend to live in the LA area, or they move to the LA area eventually once they start to reach full time status with entertainment. So one of the people I've been watching a lot is Hassan Piker, obviously. I'm a big fan of his. And he is an LA resident himself. I think he's been an LA resident for most, if not half of his life. I know he was in Texas for a while, but he's a local and he has shared quite a lot. In fact, he was even on so Fox News. Everyone knows Fox, right? And Fox News, and everyone's like, oh, conservative Fox News. There's also local versions of Fox as well. And Fox 11 have been doing something like a 72-hour or something live stream. In fact, I think it's just been full coverage day after day after day, like continual coverage through the night. And there is a journalist on there that managed to get him on, and he was talking. Hassan actually went and talked to some of the firefighters that were part of the imprisoned population, and they are. It's kind of like a reintegration program, and they are currently fighting the fires. And so he went down and had a chat with them while they were having a bit of a break and shedding light on some of the other people that were helping fight the fires. But the reason that I want to cover this is because some of the things that they've been saying, and I guess a lot of the conversation around the event is, horrific as it is, and it is very much fueled by climate change, and it's really a disastrous happening event. There are some conversations that will continue after it that are actually quite reflective of what we should be concerned about here in New Zealand as well. So I'm going to throw up ye boy.
Don't throw up.
Ye boy. Because I think he certainly says it more eloquently than I do.
I mean, that's his job.
I mean, yeah, that also helps.
Yeah, I mean, dude, live streams for like what, 8 hours a day?
8 hours a day, every day. He is nuts. But I think he had some really interesting insights, which hopefully you guys can hear this. If this
situation has gotten completely out of control. That's my point. Yeah, the misconception here is that fire department funding would have stopped this. This is land management fuel issue. Even another 100 million probably wouldn't change anything. No, fire department funding also plays a role in land management, though. For example, I'll tell you this much, and I briefly covered this earlier, but it bears repeating. The fire department, for example, could communicate with neighborhoods like the Pacific Palisades on what the best practices are in terms of like harm mitigation, in terms of like the likelihood that this is a potential area of impact. They can go in ahead of time and make sure that certain types of trees, for example, are not so close to the houses, or clearing. Making sure that there's like rigorous fire prevention, fuel prevention, in terms of like clearing out the dry brush out of your houses, things of that nature. Funding would help in that regard as well. This is a very complex situation where more funding does absolutely help, not just in prevention, but also in mitigation. But at the end of the day, if there are 100-mile winds that are carrying embers all over the place, then yeah, you're going to run into a problem regardless. You're going to run into these issues regardless. But funding always helps. That's the point. A resident who lives right by.
Yeah, funding always helps in fighting the fires. And he's right. And I think everyone knows that this is a firestorm, literally hurricane winds, which are they're common through the winter for these guys. I had to literally check when I heard this, and I was like, it's winter over there, right? This is summer, and they're in winter, and I was like, fires? Okay.
Yeah,
I literally had to double check.
Yeah.
So the Santa Ana winds are common through the winter, and that helps to move things along. And they typically get a lot more water, rain through the winter as well, which helps with their dry season. But they have had hardly, if any, water, and that compounding effect of not getting enough water each cycle has gotten to the point where they are susceptible to fires at this point. So pretty awful stuff. And Hazan made a really good point there that funding definitely would have helped to mitigate a lot of it if they could have put some money into the mitigation, such as getting rid of the they call it the brush, basically the dry stuff that's just lying around that could go. It could they could have created a bit of a barrier or less fuel for the fire to keep the more structured areas, the neighborhoods, at a little bit less of a risk. And communication is another thing as well. So communicating to the neighbors how to clear out their debris, clear out the stuff that's fuel for the fire. And funnily enough, that's all back end stuff. That's non-essential stuff. That's the stuff that goes when your budgets get cut. Does that sound familiar at all, Magenta?
Yeah, I mean, it's always those jobs that everyone thinks are useless that end up really actually coming in clutch, eh? Like, and I mean, that's the thing is, like, I've been watching for Phil for years, and obviously he's in California. Like, this is not new. This is not nothing that hasn't been coming for a long time. They have been saying year after year that this is only getting more and more dangerous, and that these things are going to just, like, us greenies have been yelling about climate change and how it's going to affect us like this since before I became one. Like, this has just been going on for so long. And the fact that they're like, surprise Pikachu face. Oh no, it went bad. Oh, what a fucking surprise. Like, they've had the chance to do something. They chose not to make it a priority. They chose to let all of their fucking capitalistic bullshit. You know, I wonder how much of that water gets shipped into bottled water plants or random data centers, you know? Like, things that maybe aren't actually important compared to, like, not having your house burned down.
Yeah. As I say, cooling the AI machines that are overheating with their 100.
Right, like, we can live without ChatGPT.
NVIDIA GPU boards.
Right? It's just it's just annoying because it's not anything new and not anything people haven't been wanting about for years. And it's just frustrating to see the results of decades of people trying to be like, stop this, please. Please, it's getting worse.
The really sad thing is actually if you go back to sort of 2002, 2005, when this really started to come into sort of common vernacular, especially with the guy who ran for president, Al Gore.
Oh, good old Al Gore.
It's kind of like the, you know, I want to say the flag bearer for it and getting it into mainstream. And if you go back and listen to the quotes from back that time, they could have been said today. And they
broken record
no
at
one
this
listened.
point. No.
Yeah, it's really sad. The second part to this that I think is actually so the first part is, you know, if New Zealand does the same and we cut too much of that backroom stuff, I could very much see, especially in something like the not Defence Force, who are the people that keep us safe during disasters. Please chat, help me out. It's on
defense.
Civil defense.
There we go.
For example, if their budgets get cut quite a lot, we could see similar things happening.
Oh, I
here.
mean, we've already been seeing those issues in terms of the Gisborne floods. You know,
Mhm.
there's actually a lot of I know there's actually like proper impact statements that have been done by different councils describing, obviously because a lot of Maori we were coastal. So a lot of our marae, like there are marae that have already disappeared and had to
Mhm.
be moved, and like,
Yeah.
you know, because rising tides and all of these things have been just slowly eroding and taking them away.
Yeah. Speaking of structures and buildings, so this is the second part that I think is actually quite important to hear as well. So I was listening to some more news, which is run by Cody and Katie. Don't know their last names, but they're hilarious if you like a bit of very black humor, satire, craziness. But they do every week or so they do a podcast where they just sort of have more of a chat as opposed to a scripted show. And I think this point is something that we should also listen to because I think this is quite poignant to us as well.
This, like climate change and the increasing natural disasters and the increasing cost of the natural disasters may influence how we think about like accruing wealth in this country, because for my whole life, for decades, it's been you aspire to own your home, you want to buy a house, you work toward that for years, and that's how, because that price goes up, that's how you accrue wealth. And if so many homes in the country become hard to insure, uninsurable, that's not going to be a way that people like get up into the middle class anymore.
Yeah. Is it even the right? But I'll counter that because I had this conversation last night too. Even if you choose to rent and, you know, use your money in different ways to save, invest, become one of those shareholders, I don't know. Someone's got to be the landlord. You know, you're renting from somebody, so somebody owns that house. So while I agree with that, this issue of insurance is ever present and very real, not just in California, everywhere. There are reports. I don't know. One of the things we want to talk about.
That's pretty much it. But they make a very good point. One of the things that has been, I think what she goes on to say here is whether or not it's misinformation, but a lot of the fire insurance that people had was cut not too many weeks before because it was just way too expensive for insurance companies to cover, especially somewhere like LA where you're looking at, on average, $2 million houses and up. And it's too much to insure that for things like, you know, natural disasters, fires, which are common in the area.
Well, they're only getting more common, that's the problem.
Exactly. I mean, every summer it seems we've seen Australia's the same pretty much every summer. I mean, ourselves the same. We've had pretty much every summer we have a fire. I think currently the Coromandel, I think, is currently having a bit of a fire issue. I think it's the Coromandel. They're also having fires. So Canterbury, very commonly we have fires in this area as well because it gets very dry. But
yeah. Well, I mean, there was a fire when I was down there.
Yeah, exactly. So they make a really good point, though. I think we will start to see some of those similar things happening where disaster insurance or fire insurance, flood insurance, those sorts of things. I think we've already seen it. You can't really insure properties too close to the coastline that have been stated as coastal. Sorry, brain's going too close to the coast. They're going to get
basically they're risk prone to all of that flooding, erosion, tsunami, all that fun shit.
Tsunami, I think, is one that you can't predict, so they typically are probably higher premiums. But certainly, if you're in an erosion zone, it's pretty much impossible to get insurance for some of those houses. So we're already seeing that. I wouldn't surprise me if fire's another one that gets up there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean,
can it?
Absolutely. I know that Phil has been talking a bit about the issues around fire insurance at the moment recently. There's a lot of, I think they were trying to maybe potentially loosen up some things to try and expand it, because obviously with the emergency that's going on right now, they're kind of just doing, crap, sorry that we didn't let you have house insurance. Maybe we'll see if we can, like, I don't know, do a little bit to seem like we're trying to help you, but
yeah.
And
this is coming back to the housing side of it. They're right. Like, what if our investments are tied up in our housing, which we're the same. It's not just America. We are the same. It's very common in the West to, expect the housing market to pay for your retirement, or your home to be your retirement plan, essentially. What happens when that's not insurable? What happens when it burns down and you can't get a payout? Or what do you do? Is that a safe investment anymore? Is it worth owning your own home? But like Katie also says, someone's got to be the landlord. Someone has to rent that house to you.
And that's the thing, is people have to be willing to take the risk on them. They have to be willing to lose money, and that's what people tend to get a bit weird about. They're like, no, I must always be increasing my profits. I must never lose anything on this property ever.
Well, then, if that's the case, do you have greedy landlords, not going to say greedy, but landlords that essentially say, well, if I'm going to provide this service, then in order to mitigate, and try and get rid of the mortgage as fast as possible, they're going to hike up the rents perhaps, because that'll cover more of their house quicker, which perhaps if they decide to pull out of their investment earlier, they get a bit more of that money back. So I don't know. Do we just get rid of the private housing market? Is that what's going to happen? Are we just going to see a bunch of empty housing? Is it going to completely crash the market? I don't know.
To be fair, I think my main concern is just there's going to be a bunch of fucking rich people that are just going to pick up all of this cheap property and try to get their hands on it and gentrify harder. Yay.
Yeah, I mean, that is another option. Yeah, you're gonna something else that people have said is that there's a good chance that people are desperate to recoup their loss, could just take whatever payout instead of waiting for insurance or the government to pay them out. They could just take, a property developer, for example, who's got a couple million to take your lot and to build whatever they want on it, and they've got the cash to be able to pay you out. So, it basically take advantage of people that are desperate. So I don't know what will come of this, but I can tell you now that there is billions and billions of dollars that's going to be, we're talking multi-million-dollar houses. Paris Hilton, for example, lost her house.
Oh, did you? I haven't bothered learning about what celebrity lost their house, because I'm like,
no,
sucks, I guess.
To be fair, they are the people that are not the ones that are going to be majorly affected by this.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like,
they probably have another house somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One house burnt down. I'm sure you're
fine. They're also probably in a position where that wasn't their only investment. Like that one house perhaps could have been paid, probably already been paid off, or I don't know. But they're not the ones that are going to miss. Like,
the people I care about are the ones who have lost their life. They may even end up, like the amount of people who are going to end up likely losing their jobs, their homes, family. Like, this is going to set off a bunch of mental health issues in the community, because how do you come back from something like this without a bit of trauma, Like, it's pretty sad.
She's a hotel heiress. I think her accommodation is sorted. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I know it's interesting, and that is very much an interesting narrative of like, this celebrity lost their house and this celebrity. But I think if you want to look at it in a slightly more positive light, which I don't know if this is positive, but climate change does not discriminate. You can be the richest person and you can be the poorest person, and it will come for you. Disasters happen just because you're, living next to a rich person doesn't mean the fire's not going to be like, oh no, I'll go for this one instead. Like, it doesn't care.
But didn't Lexus say that he's rich and he's sorted? So that means that if there's any natural disasters, he's sorted, right?
Yeah, but he does own a home in Wellington, right?
Oh, which one? Which house?
So if he's, I don't know, perhaps living in Wellington, he's also perhaps in the firing line of an earthquake. Much of the entirety of Wellington are in an earthquake-prone zone, and it's not unlikely that an earthquake will happen. And again, yeah, he's rich and he's sorted. He'll lose a house if that happens, perhaps, but he can pick up and he'll be fine. It's the person like yourself, Magenta, who doesn't
down the
actually
road.
own, down the road, doesn't own their home, is renting.
I also
if you
live on the
lost
side
the
of a
home-
hill, so like, you know, the chances of, like, what if it happens when I'm in the house? There's a few of us,
Yeah.
so we'll all go down.
Yeah. So I think as far as away as it is, I think we also need to be keeping our eyes out and also thinking about what this means for us, because yeah, this could affect us. Another thing similar could affect us, and I think we have to think about that. That's on my brain. Anything extra to add to it? Anything in chat that you want to
I will check up some of the
highlight?
chats. I've got a couple of super chats. This one from Kiwi Burb. Fox News is blaming lesbians for the fires in LA.
Yes.
Hell yeah, that's some Brian Tamaki shit right there.
So, to give context to that, the fire chief, I think it's the fire chief, I think that's what she's called, is just happens to be a lesbian, and she's doing a fantastic job, in my opinion, of dealing with this, and she's not holding back and being critical of the mayor who cut her spending.
Yeah.
But she is a well-decorated firefighter, so and well qualified for the job for sure. So
Yeah.
thanks, Fox.
I mean, they always try to blame the gays for natural disasters. We're used to it. It's fine.
I
we
think
got
that's
$5 from Mr. Arvids. We got Happy New Year. Also, F. Seymour doing my regulatory standards bill submission while listening. And yes, that's another one. If you've done your treaty principles bill, go and look up the RSB. Do it.
ASAP, because I'm pretty sure that's due tonight.
Yes, it is. Open it. Do it now.
So
there's also
don't
links.
delay on that
We
one.
have been given links, so no excuses.
Yes.
Go get amongst it, people. Also, this was just a funny comment from Wooming earlier. Tamaki is full of wind at the moment. Must be all the national MPs at home. Yeah, that's right. They would have all flocked back, eh? That makes sense.
Ah, yay.
And then this last little funny one from Simon. We can't really afford civil defense or firefighters. We really need that money for tax cut for landlords. And you know what? I can't believe we didn't think about the landlords. We really got to think about them more often.
I know. I mean, they're the ones that are like housing us, so it's really important.
Yeah. Like we owe them our lives, remember? We should be thankful.
Yeah, we should be thankful that they're putting a roof over our head, right? And charging us incredibly large amounts of rent to pay off their very inexpensive house.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.